all these people have families, that they're leaving behind to go and help young men, young women, kids, really kind of just take another step in their development. Now, do we all have, do we all have that desire to be a part of something bigger than us? Absolutely. There's some of us, love, being in, the gym with, Jim Boeheim or John Calipari or any of those guys. Sure, everybody gets starstruck, but that's just a perk of the volunteering that, like I said, so many people across the United States do. There's so many good people that do this.
Pat, across AAU ball, and you've been in it for a while now, who's the best player you've ever coached against or coached?
So there's two guys that jump out at me from last year that were just overwhelming, and then there's one guy this year that I got to give some love to. So I'm going to say it's a three-way tie.
Hey fans of M&A, thanks for tuning in to another episode of M&A Sports Radio, and if you haven't already, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app.
While you're in there, leave us a rating, add a comment. We appreciate the feedback. Thank you for tuning in to M&A Sports Radio. On tonight's M&A Sports Sit-Down, with the recent passing of Howard Garfinkel, the man who invented the star rating for recruits, as well as the 5-star basketball camp, I figure now more than ever is the perfect time to discuss the ins and outs of AAU hoops. And with that, we introduce Patrick Neary, the Vice President of Albany City Rocks, who play in the EYBL. He actually happens to be my cousin. Hey, Pat, what's going on, man?
Hey, Mike, AJ, how's it going?
How are you, Pat?
For having me on tonight.
Of course, man. Welcome to the program.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk about AAU, the big myth,
And Pat, now, like this time of year, obviously you guys are just getting started up. I talked to you a little bit. I think you guys started around the 15th at Brooklyn Navy Yard. I couldn't make it. I think I was at actually a Yankee game that day. But I know you guys have started to bounce around a little bit. Where are you guys playing this summer?
So the first session, like you mentioned, we started April 15th. Nike EYBL is 4 sessions. There's 40 teams, 4 divisions of 10, and we play a 16-game regular season. So first session was at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal or the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Second session was at Jonathan Byrd Fieldhouse out just outside of Indianapolis. This weekend we go down to, what's probably the mecca of AAU basketball, Boo Williams Sportsplex down in Hampton, Virginia. And then our final session of the regular season is in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're through the first 2 sessions already.
I know we've talked about Boo Williams in the past. You actually got me a shirt a couple of years ago. Is that your favorite tournament to go to each year?
I love it. Normally it's the first session, and that's normally the first live event that we go to. This year. It's actually the 3rd session, and it's during a blackout period. But my 2 favorite events, actually, one is Rumble in the Bronx, which is actually a City Rock run tournament. It's during the dead period in June. We have that in Manhattan and obviously the Bronx and Brooklyn. And then, the coup de grace is Nike Peach Jam, which is Nike Finals down in Augusta, Georgia. So I'll definitely say that's my favorite one.
I remember
like a major in golf.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Augusta.
I remember talking to you about when Jason Tatum committed to Duke last year at the Peach Jam. I remember having that conversation with you.
It's funny you mentioned golf down in Augusta, but with how crazy Peach Jam is, there's very, very little time for anything other than hoop.
Oh yeah.
So.
Pat, I want to keep going here, talking about like the AAU culture. You talking about all this type of traveling and stuff like that. You get to meet a lot of different people, and these kids get to interface with a lot of different coaches, people, and I think you know where I'm kind of getting at with this, with the AAU culture. And where I want to, I guess, hear from you is, from the outside looking in, if you're someone who watches an ESPN or an Outside the Lines episode, you're seeing the bad side. It looks like a greasy business, and I think for you, being on the inside of it, having exposure, to get these kids exposure and having day-to-day, getting to learn about the kids and meet them and help them grow, I want to know how much is that is perception versus reality.
Well, I think it's I think perception versus reality. I think those two things go hand in hand. Your perception in a lot of instances is your reality.
Very true.
You're not willing to actually go in and really explore. The AAU culture, it almost sounds like like a bad thing, that there's some kind of, like you said, something nefarious about the AAU culture. And then you always have guys, coming out and speaking about it. Kobe Bryant, has kind of trashed AAU in the past. And Steve Kerr recently came out and, I think he was level-headed with what he was saying, and I think he was point on with what he was saying. But you never really hear the great things about AAU. And, man, there's so many more great things about AAU than there are bad things. AAU nowadays is considered, the downfall of American basketball, and the international kids are so much more skilled, and it gets a pretty bad rap. For a kid to become a Division I basketball player, it's a pretty long equation. There's a lot of things that go into that final product. The first thing is you've got to take care of, his work in the classroom. I mean, if he doesn't do that first and foremost, then, it doesn't matter how good he is, he's not getting through the clearinghouse. And then after that, there's individual workouts, after that, there's time in, working with weights and doing individual workouts. And, the third thing is this high school season, and then AAU. So, it's really, really hard to hear, guys bash AAU when AAU is really just another tool for kids to go out and take another step towards their dreams. So, kind of in a long-winded answer, but it's an important one because AAU is really the only one that gets a bad rap out of all of those individual pieces to the equation.
And it's funny, we talked about this summer, and I kind of had a similar conversation because whenever I'm with you, I kind of pick your brain about this stuff. And you told me a story how I think it was in Springfield you held an event. I think there was a tournament there, and across the street from it, you held a type of just like an open gym for kids to come work out, and a bunch. I think you said like 30 or 40 college coaches came, and a bunch of kids picked up offers or at least interest. I forget the whole backstory, but I think that is the good side that you're talking, that people, I don't hear about that. I think for anyone who's not in that, and I think it's unfortunate, like even like the way you said it, the word AAU culture just sounds derogatory. It sounds derogatory.
It has a negative
really
connotation. It sounds like it has a negative connotation.
Absolutely. Well, I think, like the event that you're referring to, Mike, was actually kind of a groundbreaking event, and it was put together, by Jim Hart, who is City Rock president, and Terrence Williams, a.k.a. Munch, who is the president of PSA Cardinals, which is another Nike EYBL team out of New York City. And, the idea was, hey, listen, there's a tournament going on in Springfield. It's a live tournament, which means college coaches can be in the gym evaluating guys. It was towards the end of the year. So, the guys that play significant minutes in EYBL, they already have their offers. Their recruitment is pretty much set. But, our strength as a program is not saying that we have 6 kids with Division I offers. It's saying that we have, 10, 11, 12 kids that will go to school for free, whether it be Division I, Division II, or Division III. So for us, doing this quote-unquote combine, what it was we didn't charge any of our kids anything. It was free for them. And then they went through individual drills with skills trainers, coaches with PSA and coaches with, City Rocks, and colleges, came in and paid for a packet and got to watch the event and evaluate some kids. And, yeah, we did have kids late that picked up offers. And at the end of the day, the biggest misconception with all of AAU is that, every coach, every director, anybody that's involved with it that's not a player is making money hand over fist. And that's just patently false.
Yeah.
And it's really offensive to a lot, this overwhelming amount of volunteers that volunteer their time and use their own money to, pay, to go to tournaments and drive to tournaments and, drive kids all over the place. And, all these people have families, that they're leaving behind to go and help young men, young women, kids, really kind of just take another step in their development. Now, do we all have, do we all have that desire to be a part of something bigger than us? Absolutely. There's some of us, love, being in, the gym with, Jim Boeheim or John Calipari or any of those guys. Sure, everybody gets starstruck, but that's just a perk of the volunteering that, like I said, so many people across the United States do. There's so many good people that do this.
Pat, across AAU ball, and you've been in it for a while now, who's the best player you've ever coached against or coached?
There's 2 guys that jump out at me from last year that were just overwhelming. And then there's one guy this year that I got to give some love to. So I'm going to say it's a three-way tie.
Okay.
The guy from this year is Gary Trent Jr. He's a shooting guard. He plays for Howard Pulley, which is out of Minnesota. So he goes to the same high school that Tyus Jones went to, Apple Valley.
Okay.
We just played his team. They're undefeated right now in EYBL. We just played his team. He had 32 against us. And, I mean, we're a really good defensive team. And, I mean, this guy is just – he's tough as nails, future pro, knock down big shot after big shot. Great kid, too, really nice kid. The other two guys, Miles Bridges, played for the family, played against us last year. You know, if you actually YouTube search him, one of his highlight tapes is all against us in a Peach Jam game last year. I think he had like 7 or 8 dunks. And then the last guy, it's not because I'm a big Kentucky basketball homer, but the guy that was just amazing to watch was De'Aaron Fox. I mean, the speed and, you know, the way he controlled the game, he was just unbelievable to watch. Unbelievable to watch.
I've heard a lot at Moose, and we've talked about this, like stacked teams in AAU, like teams that just turn out like 6 pros, at least like 8 kids that went D1. Who's the best 5-man unit you've ever seen in AAU ball?
Definitely last year's Georgia Stars team. They ended up winning Nike Peach Jam. We played them twice. Our margin of their margin of victory against us total was like 5 points or something like that. They beat us by 4, and then I think by 2, maybe it was 6 down at Peach Jam. But they were just unbelievable. I mean, the starting center, Udoka Azubuike, is going to Kansas, was ranked top 15 in the country. Wendell Carter, who, you know, Mike is in 2017, you know, has offers from Duke and, you know, Kentucky and everywhere. He's, you know, 6'11". You know, have another kid that's going to Mississippi State, 7-footer, shooting guard going to North Carolina, Brandon Robinson. And then the guy that kind of got overlooked a little bit was the little point guard, Jared Harper, who led the EYBL three-point percentage. But that was because he was only 5'9", not, you know, one of the other monsters like those guys. But they were just unbelievable. Size, shooting, you know, well coached, just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Pat, we look at big-time college basketball, and each and every year, I think we get starstruck, like you kind of said, talking about the top players, and we kind of, the guys that fall in that next tier tend to get lost. And I think that's where I think someone like you has a much better experience seeing the whole landscape. So who's someone for next year that I may not know about that's going to blow up onto the college team? Maybe they're a 3-star. Maybe we just haven't heard. Who's someone you've seen, and I guess where are they going, and what do you expect from them?
Well, there's 2 guys that you know, kind of just hit my mind, and you know they are they're both 4-star guys. One may be a 5-star, but he was a late-rated 5-star, kind of a late stock riser. And you know, he's in his 30s or 40s right now. His name's Bruce Brown. He's a big combo guard out of Vermont Academy. Played for BABC Boston's EYBL team. I mean, the kid is just unbelievable. He has a lot of, you know, Russell Westbrook in him, just, you know, great athleticism.
That's scary.
You know, shoots it really well, fills it up. And then another guy is you know, one of our guys, 6'6" point guard from Rochester. His name's Quentin Rose. He's going to Temple next year. So, you know, he's a guy that maybe next year, you know, we don't know how much he'll contribute because he's got to get a college body, but I'm telling you, man, you're going to want to watch this kid. He, you know, junior year, senior year, once he gets a college-ready body, that could be a future pro, man. And he's definitely under the radar.
Hopefully he can get some minutes with Quentin DeCozy, who's a St. Joe's alum where I went to high school. A lot of pros out of St. Joe's. So I knew a little bit about it. I mean, Carl Towns is a freak, but I was a freshman when Bynum was a senior, and then he bounced to go to the league. So it was really good time for that program. They got a ton of D1 kids.
Yep.
Who, besides that kid going to Temple, who on your team, who should we be on the lookout for? Where do you see them going?
Well, there's you know, the big name up here that gets a lot of love, 2016 kid, Kevin Herter, you know, another 6'6" point guard from up here. You know, going to Maryland, you know, just great shooter, you know, great floor general, really underrated, you know, in terms of athletically. But we got some guys on this year's EYBL team that, you know, are monsters. You know, we have one kid, Anthony Gaines, who's a 6'4", you know, wing. He goes to New Hampton Prep. He actually is sixth in the entire EYBL in rebounding. He's averaging 16 points and 12 boards a game. That's a 6'4" wing, 2 steals a game. So just relentless kid, absolute warrior. Best part about him, 3.7 GPA.
Good kid.
And then another one of our guys is Andrew Playtech, who's another local kid from up here, goes to Northfield Mount Herman now. 6'4", wing. Just got offered from North Carolina, Indiana. Great shooter, just, another tough warrior kind of kid, great on-ball defender. So, and that's, I could go on and on. There's Hamir Wright, who's a local kid, Isaiah Carter, Keith McGee. There's guys that we have a very talented roster this year. So,
Pat, one last thing about Kevin Huerter before I move on here. I know clearly Maryland's the backcourt's kind of got to be revamped on the fly. They lose a lot of guys there in general, but does he get serious minutes next year at Maryland?
Kevin's going to be very, very difficult to keep off the floor.
Okay. That length is tough to replace. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, just day one, just the kid is has an NBA ready mind, and just he's one of those kids where you look at him and you just say, oh, I'll be able to get up and really pressure this kid, and he understands angles so well and speed so well that you can't take the ball from him. It's impossible.
One last thing before I let you go, Marcus Bolden. As time goes on here, I feel less and less confident that Duke's going to win this battle against Kentucky. Where do you think he ends up, Kentucky or Duke?
Man, I really don't know. For some reason, I have this kind of weird suspicion that that somebody else may be in there making a late push. I think a kid like that, when you have those options, it's normally just, hey, if the offer's there, accept it, and then the program will figure it out later, I guess, in terms of scholarship numbers. So I don't know. It's a very weird recruitment. I really don't know what's going on. I know Kentucky, if Marcus Lee and Briscoe come back, technically right now I think they're full for scholarships, and I think Duke maybe two at this point.
I think with Thornton transferring, I think they got one back. But no, I'm interested to see how it works out. I keep thinking about TCU. I know he was there when Trent Johnson was there. That's where the interest came from. But when you get a coach like Jamie Dixon, I think they're still. I think it's at a puncher's chance at best. But I think that's interesting when you talk about that secret team.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you, man, this whole recruiting thing is it's weird for everybody involved, and one thing that we have to tell these kids nonstop is, hey, when a North Carolina or a Kentucky or a Duke or one of these blue chips offers you, you have to realize that offer is going out to 6 or 7 other kids,
Absolutely.
that are in your position. So it really is a thoughtful process, and that's part of the thing that bothers me about some of the things that get said about AAU, because this whole idea that the basketball just gets rolled out and teams don't practice, and guys get flown in from all over the place, and some of that stuff is true. It does happen, but that's like anything else. Why aren't we after Little League? Why aren't we after the Little League teams sometimes play 3-4 games in a day? They have kids transferring in from all over the place. So for AAU, those details are so important, whether it be a kid's recruitment or whether it be, just before I got on the phone with you guys, I'm watching film, I'm going through analytics, there's a lot of stuff that puts our disposal on the EYBL level that, there's so many great coaches too. So I don't mean to digress, but I think all those things are kind of intertwined. It's very detail ridden, and, it's unfortunate that you see so many kids transferring now. That means they're not ending up in the right place originally, but it's just a weird process. That's a very weird process. You never know what's going to happen. Marcus Bolden, end up in Manhattan or something like that. You never know what can happen.
That's
too funny.
God. Who knows?
The hair on my neck just went up.
Who knows what Mazziello has up his sleeve? That's too funny. I love it. Again, that's Pat Neary, Vice President of Albany City Rocks of the EYBL. Pat, thank you so much for calling in, man. Maybe we'll have you on again soon sometime.
Thanks, Pat.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm always available. Appreciate you guys giving me a chance to talk about AAU and the good things about AAU.
Absolutely.
Not just bad.
You got
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks.
You got it, Pat. Good luck, man.